The salvage vessel moved slowly through the dead zone of space. Captain Zexlar stood on the bridge, his blue skin glowing faintly under the dim lights. He was Valdrine, a species known across the galaxy for finding valuable things in forgotten places. Today might be his lucky day. "Captain, we have visual on the derelict," said Kiev, the young engineer at the scanner station. His voice carried excitement that only inexperienced crew members showed. On the main screen, a massive ship appeared. It was old, very old. The hull was dark and scarred from centuries of micrometeor impacts. Parts of it were missing, torn away by some ancient disaster, but the name was still visible along the side, painted in faded letters that belonged to an almost forgotten language. "Horizon's Edge," Zexlar read aloud. "Human design. Pre-war era." He felt his pulse quicken. Pre-war, human technology was worth serious money to collectors. The humans had been good at building things before they lost their war with the Galactic Collective. "Sir, the ship has been drifting for approximately 800 years, reported Thel, the science officer. She was older than most of the crew and careful about everything. "I recommend extreme caution. The structure may be unstable." Zexlar waved a hand dismissively. "We've salvaged worse. Prepare a boarding team. Era. Wave. Weave." 2 hours later, Zexlar walked through the dark corridors of the human ship. His suit lights cut through the darkness, revealing walls covered in frost. The ship was dead. No power, no heat, no life. His boots made soft clanking sounds on the metal floor. "Captain, over here," called Kiev. The young engineer stood in front of a sealed door. The symbol on it showed a medical cross, a human symbol for healing. They forced the door open. Inside was a medical bay, and it was surprisingly intact. Equipment lined the walls, all of it covered in dust and ice. But in the center of the room, something glowed with a faint blue light, a cryopod. Zexlar approached it carefully. The display panel on the pod showed readings he could barely understand. But one thing was clear. The pod was still active, still functioning after 800 years. And inside it, through the frosted glass, he could see a shape, a human shape. "By the stars," whispered Kiev. "Someone's actually in there." Thel's voice came through the comm system. She had stayed on the ship. "Captain, I strongly advise against opening that pod. We don't know what condition the occupant is in. They could be dead, or worse, carrying ancient diseases." Zexlar stared at the pod. A living human from before the war would be priceless. They could tell stories, provide information, maybe even remember technology that was lost. It took them 30 minutes to connect the pod to portable power and figure out the release mechanism. When the pod finally hissed open, cold air poured out like fog. Then the human's eyes opened. He sat up slowly, breathing heavily. He was male, with dark hair and a strong build. He looked around the medical bay with confusion, then focused on Zexlar and Kiev. For a moment, nobody spoke. "Where am I?" the human asked. His voice was rough from centuries of sleep. "You're safe," Zexlar said in standard galactic. Most species could understand it. "You were in cryo sleep. Your ship has been drifting for a long time." The human blinked. "How long?" 800 years, give or take." The human processed this information with surprising calm. He looked down at his hands, flexed his fingers, then looked back at Zexlar. "My name is Jake Morrison." "What year is it?" Zexlar told him. Jake's face showed no emotion. But something changed in his eyes. Something hard. They brought Jake back to the Keeper's Hope. Dr. Sora, the ship's physician, examined him in the medical bay. She was efficient and professional, running her scanners over Jake's body while he sat quietly on the examination table. "Remarkable," Sora muttered, looking at her readings. "His vitals are stable. Better than stable, actually. His body seems to be in perfect condition despite the extended cryo sleep." She frowned at one particular reading. These neural patterns are unusual. And his muscle density is off the charts. Is that a problem? Jake asked. No, just unusual. The equipment might be calibrating incorrectly for human biology. Sora made some notes. You're healthy. That's what matters. The crew gave Jake quarters near the cargo bay. They were small, but comfortable. Jake accepted them without complaint. He accepted the food they offered too, eating slowly while crew members stared at him from other tables in the common area. Humans were common enough in the galaxy now, but they were usually laborers or technicians. They worked on ships like this one, doing jobs that didn't require much skill. The Terran collective war had ended 300 years ago, and humanity had lost badly. Now humans were considered a minor species. Useful, but not important. But Jake was different. He was from before the war, from a time when humans were still trying to compete with the other species. The crew didn't know what to make of him. How are you feeling? Asked a voice. Jake looked up and saw another human standing near his table. She was young, maybe mid-20s, with short brown hair. She wore a technician's uniform. I'm fine, Jake said. You're human. Yeah. I'm Amy Chen. I work in engineering here. She sat down across from him without asking. I heard. They found you on a derelict. That must be strange, waking up after so long. Strange is one word for it, Jake said. He studied her face. What happened to Earth? To humanity? Amy's expression darkened. That's a long story. The short version is, we lost a war. And now we live where the collective tells us to live. Earth is blockaded. Most humans have never even seen it. Jake absorbed this information silently. His jaw tightened slightly. But hey, Amy continued, trying to sound cheerful. We survive. We get by. It's not so bad once you accept it. Jake looked at her for a long moment. I don't accept things easily, he said quietly. Captain Zexlar had decided to drop Jake off at New Terra, a human colony world that was only 2 weeks away. It was a mining colony, rough and basic, but Jake would find other humans there. He could start a new life. Jake thanked the captain for his help. He seemed grateful to be alive, grateful for the rescue. He asked simple questions about the ship and the galaxy, always polite, always calm. Nobody suspected anything. He was just another human, lost and confused, in a galaxy that had moved on without him. They had no idea what they had really woken up. Jake spent the next few days learning about the ship and helping where he could. The crew found him useful. He had a natural understanding of mechanical systems that surprised everyone. When a gravity stabilizer broke down in Section 3, Jake worked with Fiv, the maintenance worker, to fix it. How do you know how to do this? Fiv asked, watching Jake rewire a control panel. This is Valdrine technology. You've never seen it before. Jake shrugged. Machines work on similar principles. Once you understand the basics, you can figure out most systems. His hands moved quickly and confidently. Within an hour, the stabilizer was working again. 5 reported the incident to Captain Zexlar. The captain made a note of it, but didn't think much about it. Some humans were naturally talented with technology. It was one reason they made good technicians. In the evening, Jake joined the crew in the common area for dinner. He sat quietly, eating the protein paste that served as food on most salvage vessels. The Valdrine crew talked among themselves, occasionally glancing at him. So the human knows how to fix things, said Pell, a cargo handler with a mean streak. Fix things, carry things, clean things. He laughed. The broken species. Several crew members looked uncomfortable. Rin, the communications officer, glanced at Jake to see his reaction. Jake looked up from his food. He met Pell's eyes for just a moment. There was something in that look, something cold and calculating. But then Jake smiled politely and went back to eating. Rin felt a chill run down her spine. She had seen something in Jake's eyes during that brief moment. Something that didn't match his calm exterior. That night, alarms blared throughout the ship. Red lights flashed in the corridors. Captain Zexlar's voice boomed over the comm system. All hands, battle stations. We're under attack. Krell pirates. 3 boarding pods. Non-essential personnel to the safe room, immediately. Jake was in his quarters when the alarm started. He stood up calmly and walked into the corridor. Other crew members were running. Panicked. Amy appeared next to him. Her face pale. "Come on," she said, grabbing his arm. "We need to get to the safe room." Jake followed her at first. They moved through the corridors with other crew members, all heading for the reinforced compartment at the ship's center. But then Jake heard something over the open comm channel. Weapons fire. Screaming. Someone calling for help. He stopped walking. "Jake, come on," Amy urged. "It's not safe. Where's the armory?" Jake asked. "What?" "It's sealed. Only command staff can access it." "Jake, we need to go." Jake nodded slowly. Then he turned and walked in the opposite direction. "Jake!" Amy called after him, but he was already gone. In the cargo bay, Security Chief Braun and 2 of his officers were pinned down behind cargo containers. 6 Krell pirates advanced on their position. The Krell were big, nearly 7 feet tall, with thick armor and heavy weapons. They were known for their brutality. Braun fired his pulse rifle, but the Krell armor absorbed the shots easily. One of his officers was already wounded, bleeding blue blood onto the floor. They were outgunned and out of time. "Fall back," Braun ordered. But there was nowhere to fall back to. The Krell had them trapped. Then the cargo bay door opened. A human walked in. He was unarmed and alone. The Krell immediately turned their weapons on him. Energy bolts filled the air, bright and deadly. The human should have died in the first second, but he didn't. He moved. But it wasn't normal movement. It was too fast, too precise. He flowed between the energy bolts like water, never stopping, always advancing. The security cameras struggled to track him, capturing only blurs of motion. Jake reached the first Krell in 3 seconds. He grabbed the pirate's weapon, twisted it in a way that shouldn't have been possible, and used it to fire at the second Krell. The shot took the pirate in the chest, dropping him instantly. The first Krell tried to fight back, but Jake was already behind him. A precise strike to the back of the neck, and the pirate collapsed. The remaining 4 Krell opened fire together. Jake rolled under the shots, came up next to a cargo container, and used it as cover for half a second. Then, he was moving again, closing the distance. Braun watched in absolute shock. His mind couldn't process what he was seeing. No one moved like that. It violated every understanding of biology and physics he had. In 40 seconds, it was over. All 6 Krell pirates were on the floor, dead or unconscious. Jake stood in the center of the cargo bay, holding a Krell rifle. He wasn't even breathing hard. Captain Zexlar arrived with reinforcements. They stopped at the door, staring at the scene. Jake looked up at them and lowered the weapon. "They were going to kill your security chief," Jake said simply. "I helped." But Zexlar couldn't speak. He looked at the bodies, at Braun's shocked face, at Jake's calm expression. How did you?" Zexlar started, but couldn't finish. "I had some military training," Jake said, "before I went into Cryo." That explanation didn't come close to covering what they had just witnessed. But nobody knew what else to say. Jake helped Braun to his feet. The security chief stared at him with wide eyes. "Thank you," Braun managed to say. "You're welcome." The crew spent the next hour securing the ship and removing the Krell boarding pods. The pirates' ship had fled when they stopped receiving signals from their boarding parties. The immediate danger was over. But a new danger had been introduced. Every crew member who had seen the security footage was talking about it. Word spread through the ship. The human wasn't normal. He was something else. In the medical bay, Dr. Sora pulled up Jake's scans again. She had dismissed the unusual readings before, blaming faulty equipment. But now she looked at them with new understanding. His reaction time was 40% faster than the best Valdrine Special Forces operative. His bone density could withstand impacts that would shatter most species' skeletons. And there, embedded in his neural tissue, were microscopic machines. Nanites. Technology that shouldn't exist in a human from 800 years ago. By the ancestors, Sora whispered. What are you? In his quarters, Jake sat on his bunk and flexed his hands. He had hoped to keep a low profile, to reach New Terra quietly. But that plan was gone now. He had revealed himself. He thought about Amy's words from a few days ago. About humanity living where the collective told them to live. About accepting it. Jake had never been good at accepting things. Even before the enhancements, even before Project Ascension, he had been a fighter, and now he was awake in a galaxy where his people lived as second-class citizens, where they had been defeated and broken. That was going to change. Captain Zexlar requested a private meeting with Jake the next morning. Jake knew what was coming. Questions. Demands for answers. He stood up and walked to the captain's ready room. It was time to explain some things. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity wasn't as broken as everyone thought. Captain Zexlar stood behind his desk when Jake entered the ready room. The captain's normally calm blue face showed tension. He gestured to a chair, but Jake remained standing. Sit, Zexlar said. It wasn't a request. Jake sat. I've reviewed the security footage from the cargo bay, Zexlar began. I've also reviewed Dr. Sora's medical scans. Both tell me the same thing. You're not a normal human. He leaned forward. So I'll ask you directly. What are you? Jake considered his answer carefully. Lying wouldn't help now. Too many people had seen what he could do. I'm enhanced, he said finally. Genetically modified and augmented with technology. Explain. Before I went into Cryo, I was part of a program called Project Ascension. It was run by a private company called Helix Industries. They were contracted by Earth's military to create better soldiers. Jake paused. The program combined genetic modifications with neural implants and nanite technology. The goal was to improve reaction time, strength, processing speed, and healing. Zexlar absorbed this information. How many of you were created? 12 successful candidates. I was one of them. And where are the others? I don't know. I was being transported to a colony world for security work when something went wrong with the ship. I assumed I'd be woken up when we arrived. Instead, I slept for 800 years. Zexlar walked to the viewport and stared out at the stars. The Terran Collective War happened 300 years ago. Earth lost. Badly. If your species had soldiers like you, how did you lose? Jake's jaw tightened. We weren't deployed. The project was shut down 2 weeks before the war started. Why? Politicians thought we were too dangerous, too difficult to control. They were worried about what would happen if enhanced soldiers decided they didn't want to follow orders. Jake's voice was flat. They might have been right. Zexlar turned back to face him. So Earth's leaders chose to lose a war rather than use their best weapons. They didn't think they would lose. They thought they could win with conventional forces and diplomacy. Jake's eyes were cold. They were wrong. What do you plan to do now? Zexlar asked. You know what you are. You know what you're capable of. And now you know that your species is scattered and subjugated across the galaxy. I plan to reach New Terra, Jake said. After that, I'll decide. Zexlar studied him for a long moment. You're dangerous, Jake Morrison. Not just to my crew, but potentially to the entire galactic order. Part of me thinks I should seal you in a cell and turn you over to collective authorities. But you won't, Jake said. No. Because you saved my security chief and killed Krell pirates who would have slaughtered my crew. I owe you a debt. Zexlar sat down heavily. But understand this. If you cause problems on my ship, debt or no debt, I will stop you. Understood, Jake said. The meeting ended. Jake returned to his quarters, but didn't stay long. He went looking for Amy. He found her in engineering, working on a power relay. Can we talk? He asked. Amy looked around nervously, then nodded. They walked to an empty storage room where they could speak privately. Everyone's talking about you, Amy said. About what you did in the cargo bay. I know. They're scared. Some of them want you locked up. She looked at him. Are you really some kind of super soldier? Enhanced soldier, Jake corrected. There's a difference. What difference? Super implies perfection. I'm just improved. He paused. Amy, I need you to tell me everything about what happened to Earth. About the war. About what humanity is now. Amy sat on a storage container. For the next hour, she told him. She told him about the Terran collective war. How Earth had tried to expand into territory that the collective claimed, how the other species had united against humanity and overwhelmed them. How Earth's colonies were captured, one by one. How Earth itself was blockaded, cut off from the rest of humanity. She told him about the Treaty of Separation, which restricted where humans could live and what they could do, about how humans became laborers and technicians, doing the jobs that other species didn't want, about how human children grew up learning that they were a defeated people, a minor species, not important. We survive, Amy said quietly. Jake listened to all of it in silence. His expression gave nothing away, but Amy could see his hands slowly clenching into fists. Who leads the collective now? He asked finally. The Vrin Empire. They're the strongest military power. What they say, everyone else follows. Tell me about them. They're ruthless. They believe in order and control. Any species that doesn't submit gets crushed. Amy looked away. They're the ones who enforce the blockade on Earth. They're the reason we can't go home. Jake stood up and walked to the small viewport in the storage room. He stared out at the stars for a long time. The people who made me thought I was too dangerous to control, he said quietly. They thought enhanced humans would be a threat to the established order. They were afraid of what we might do. Were they right to be afraid? Amy asked. Jake turned to look at her. Yes. What are you going to do? I'm going to New Terra. I'm going to find other humans. And I'm going to tell them something important. What? That they don't have to accept this. That humanity didn't lose because we were weak. We lost because we were unprepared and divided. But we're not that species anymore. We've had 300 years to learn from our mistakes. Amy felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. It was dangerous and foolish, but it burned in her chest anyway. They'll come after you, she warned. If you try to organize humans, if you try to resist the collective, the Vrin will come. And they won't come alone. I know, Jake said. I'm counting on it. Why? Because I need them to understand something. I need the whole galaxy to understand. He looked back out at the stars. Humanity isn't broken. We were just sleeping. Later that night, Dr. Sora approached Jake in the common area. She sat down across from him. I've been analyzing your biology, she said. The nanites in your system are still active. They're adapting, learning, improving your body's functions. I know. You're not a relic from the past. You're a constantly evolving weapon. She looked troubled. Do you understand what that means? It means I'll keep getting better at what I do. It means you're potentially unstoppable. Sora lowered her voice. The Valdreen have a saying. The most dangerous thing in the galaxy isn't the strongest warrior or the biggest weapon. It's an idea that refuses to die. Jake looked at her. What are you trying to tell me? That you're both. You're a warrior and an idea. And that combination could change everything. She stood up. Be careful. Jake Morrison. The galaxy isn't ready for what you represent. The galaxy had 300 years to be ready, Jake replied. Time's up. The security footage from the Krell attack spread faster than Captain Zexlar could have imagined. Someone on the crew had sent it to a contact on a trading station. From there, it jumped across local networks. Within 3 days, it had reached Vryn intelligence. Commander Vorin watched the footage in his quarters aboard the strike cruiser Eternal Dominion. He watched it 3 times. Each time, his certainty grew. The human in the video wasn't normal. The speed, the precision, the combat efficiency. It matched classified reports from the Terran Collective War. Reports about human enhancement programs that were never confirmed. If humans still had access to such technology, or if they could recreate it, the entire power structure of the collective was at risk. Vorin sent a priority message to Vryn Command. The response came within hours. Intercept the salvage vessel. Secure the enhanced human. Eliminate all witnesses. Vorin smiled. He enjoyed clear orders. The Keeper's hope was 4 days from New Terra when the Vryn strike cruiser appeared on their scanners. It came out of faster-than-light travel directly in their path, cutting off their route. Valdrine vessel, power down your engines and prepare to be boarded, came the message. The voice was cold and mechanical. This is Commander Vorin of the Vryn Empire. You are harboring a person of interest. Resistance will result in your destruction. Captain Zexlar looked at his crew. They all knew what this was about. Find Jake, he ordered. Now. But Jake was already on his way to the bridge. He had heard the message over the ship's intercom. Amy was with him. You need to hide, Amy said urgently. If they get you, they're not here just for me. Jake interrupted. They saw the footage. That means they can identify your crew. Everyone who knows about me is a witness. He looked at her. They're going to kill everyone on this ship. Zexlar confirmed it when Jake reached the bridge. I tried to negotiate. Vorin refused. He says all crew must be detained for interrogation. The captain's voice was bitter. That's Vryn talk for execution. Jake moved to a console and pulled up the tactical display. The Vryn cruiser was massive, easily 4 times the size of the Keeper's Hope. It carried enough weapons to vaporize the salvage vessel in seconds. How many Vryn on board? Jake asked. Unknown. At least 50. Probably more. Zexlar looked at him. Why? Because I need to know how many I'm fighting. Before Zexlar could respond, the ship shuddered. The Vryn had launched a boarding shuttle. It attached to the main airlock with a heavy clang. Battle stations, Zexlar ordered. His security team moved into position. Weapons ready. But everyone knew it was pointless. Valdrine security officers couldn't stand against Vryn shock troops. The airlock exploded inward. 20 Vryn soldiers poured through, their black armor gleaming under the ship's lights. They moved with military precision. Weapons raised. Behind them came Commander Vorin, taller than the others, with rank insignias on his armor. All crew, on your knees, Vorin commanded. His voice echoed through the corridor. The Valdrine crew hesitated. Then, slowly, they began to kneel. They had no choice. Vryn weapons were trained on them. Captain Zexlar remained standing. I am the captain of this vessel. Under collective law, you have no authority to. Vorin shot him. The energy bolt struck Zexlar in the chest, and the captain fell backward, dead before he hit the floor. The crew gasped. Rin, the communications officer, began to cry. Vorin looked at the others. Anyone else wish to cite collective law? He asked. Nobody moved. Good. Where is the enhanced human? Engine room, one of the soldiers reported. Scanners showed 2 life signs. 1 human. Vorin smiled. Secure the crew here. Squad 2. With me. Jake stood in the engine room with Amy. He had led her there deliberately, away from the main confrontation. The room was large, filled with machinery and power conduits. Good terrain for what was coming. You need to hide, Jake told Amy. Behind that power unit. Don't come out until it's over. Until what's over? Jake, there are too many of them. Even you can't. Yes, I can. He looked at her. His eyes were calm, almost peaceful. I've been asleep for 800 years. I wake up and find my people living in chains because we lost a war, because we were afraid to use our best weapons. He smiled slightly. That's not going to stand. The engine room door opened. Commander Voren entered with 10 soldiers. They spread out, weapons trained on Jake. Jake Morrison, Voren said. Product of Project Ascension. You're going to come with us. What about the crew? Jake asked. They're witnesses. Liabilities. They'll be eliminated once you're secured. Voren moved closer. You can come willingly, or we can disable you. Either way, you're coming. Jake nodded slowly. I have a counteroffer. Oh? You leave now. You let the crew go. And in exchange, I don't kill all of you. Several Vryn soldiers laughed. Voren didn't. He studied Jake's expression and saw no fear. No doubt. Only certainty. Kill him, Voren ordered. The engine room exploded into violence. 10 Vryn soldiers opened fire simultaneously. Energy bolts filled the air, bright and deadly. But Jake was already moving. He used the machinery as cover, flowing between power units and conduits faster than the Vryn could track. He reached the first soldier in 2 seconds, disarmed him, and used the Vryn's own weapon to shoot the soldier next to him. The remaining Vryn tried to adjust their fire, but Jake was never where they aimed. He moved through them like a ghost, striking with brutal precision. Bones broke. Armor cracked. In 45 seconds, 8 soldiers were down. The last 2 tried to fall back. Jake didn't let them. He closed the distance, struck one in the throat, took his weapon, and shot the other. Voren watched all of this with growing horror. He raised his own weapon, but Jake was already in front of him, knocking the gun away. You killed Captain Zexlar, Jake said quietly. He didn't deserve that. He was in the way, Voren managed to say. So are you. Jake dragged Voren to the airlock. The Vryn commander fought, but it was like fighting a machine. Jake was stronger, faster, and completely focused. At the airlock, Jake forced Voren against the control panel. I want you to send a message to the Vryn Empire, to the Galactic Collective, to everyone who thinks humanity is finished. What message? Voren gasped. That we're not broken. We were just sleeping. Jake activated the airlock. And now we're awake. He pushed Voren into the airlock and sealed it. Then he opened the outer door. Voren was pulled into space, his screams silent in the vacuum. Jake moved to the ship's weapons control. The Vryn cruiser was still waiting, probably wondering why their commander hadn't reported in. Jake targeted their weapon systems with the Keeper's Hope's mining lasers. The lasers weren't meant for combat, but at this range, they were effective. The Vryn cruiser's weapons went offline. Jake left their engines intact. He wanted them to limp home. He wanted them to carry the message. The surviving crew of the Keeper's Hope gathered in the common area. They were shaken, traumatized, and scared. Captain Zexlar was dead. Their ship had been attacked by the Vryn Empire, and a human had saved them by killing an entire squad of elite soldiers. Jake stood before them. He didn't apologize. He didn't try to comfort them. He simply waited for them to process what had happened. What happens now? Asked Rin, the communications officer. Her voice was small. Now you take me to New Terra as planned, Jake said. Then you go wherever you want. But I need you to understand something first. The Vryn will report what happened here. The collective will know about me. Things are going to change. Change how? Asked Braun, the security chief. He was still recovering from his wounds but insisted on being present. The galaxy believed humanity was finished. Defeated. No longer a threat. I'm going to prove them wrong. Dr. Sora stepped forward. You're one person. Even with your enhancements, you can't fight the entire collective. I'm not going to fight them alone. Jake's expression was calm but determined. I'm going to wake up my people. Remind them who they used to be. Who they still are. That's insane, said Fiv. The Vryn will crush any human resistance. Maybe, Jake acknowledged. But they'll have to find us first. And they'll have to deal with what I'm about to release. Release? Sora asked. Jake explained about the Horizon's Edge. The ship that had carried him for 800 years hadn't just been transporting colonists. It had been carrying data, technical specifications, everything related to Project Ascension. The information was stored in shielded cores in the ship's computer system, protected and hidden. You're going to give humans the enhancement technology, Sora said, understanding. You're going to create more like you. I'm going to give them the choice, Jake corrected. What they do with it is up to them. The Keeper's hope reached New Terra 3 days later. The colony was small. Maybe 50,000 humans spread across a handful of settlements. They worked the mines, extracting minerals for collective industries. It was hard work, with little reward, but it was life. Amy insisted on going down to the surface with Jake. I want to see this, she said. I want to know if you're really going to change things. They took a shuttle to the largest settlement, a place called Foundation. It was basic, with simple buildings and dusty streets. Humans walked with their heads down. Tired from long shifts in the mines, Jake stood in the center of the main plaza. Amy helped him set up a transmitter, one they had borrowed from the Keeper's Hope. Jake was going to broadcast to every human settlement in the sector. Are you ready? Amy asked. Jake nodded. He activated the transmitter. My name is Jake Morrison, he began. His voice carried across Foundation and jumped to other settlements through relay stations. I'm a human from Earth, from before the war. I've been in cryosleep for 800 years. I woke up to find our species scattered and broken, living as second-class citizens in a galaxy we once tried to claim. People in Foundation stopped what they were doing. They looked at screens, at speakers, at each other. I've learned about the Terran collective war. I've learned how we lost. And I've learned what humanity has become. Jake paused. But I'm here to tell you something important. We didn't lose because we were weak. We lost because we were unprepared. Because we were divided. Because we didn't use everything we had. He uploaded the footage from the Vryn attack. People watched as he fought. As he moved faster than seemed possible. As he defeated trained soldiers with brutal efficiency. I'm enhanced, Jake continued. Part of a program called Project Ascension. There were 12 of us created. I don't know what happened to the others. But I know this. The technology that made me still exists. It's stored on my ship, the Horizon's Edge. Complete specifications. Full research data. Everything you need. Murmurs spread through the crowd in Foundation. People looked at each other with expressions of disbelief and hope. I'm not telling you what to do with this information, Jake said. I'm not your leader. I'm just someone who refuses to accept that humanity is finished. If you want to stay as you are, living safely under collective rule, that's your choice. But if you want something different, if you want to fight for it, the tools are here. He gave the coordinates of the Horizon's Edge. Send your best engineers, your best scientists. Learn. Build. Become more than what the galaxy thinks you are. Jake ended the transmission. He looked at Amy. Now we wait. They didn't have to wait long. Within hours, messages flooded in from human settlements across the sector. Engineers volunteering, scientists asking questions, young people wanting to join whatever resistance was forming. But not everyone was happy. Some humans were afraid. They said Jake would bring disaster, that the collective would retaliate, that humanity would be crushed completely this time. Jake understood their fear. But he also understood something else. Fear was a choice, and so was hope. Far above New Terra, in the cold darkness of space, sensors detected something. 3 more derelict colony ships, drifting in the void. Each one potentially carrying more cryopods. More humans from the old era. The Galactic Collective convened an emergency session on the capital world of Terrace Prime. Representatives from dozens of species argued about what to do. The Vryn demanded immediate military action against human settlements. They wanted Jake Morrison captured or killed, and they wanted the enhancement technology destroyed. But other species hesitated. They had seen the footage. They remembered that humans had nearly won the Terran collective war, despite being outnumbered. The only reason humanity lost was political problems and bad leadership, not lack of capability. And now humans had something they didn't have before. They had a symbol. They had hope. They had a reminder of what they once were and what they could become again. The collective's decision would take time. Bureaucracies moved slowly, even in crisis. That gave humanity something precious. Time to prepare. Time to learn. Time to wake up. Jake stood on a hillside overlooking Foundation. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and red. Amy stood beside him. "What do you think will happen?" "War," Jake said simply. "Can we win? I don't know. But we can fight." He looked at her. For 300 years, humanity accepted defeat, accepted being less. That ends now. "What's next for you?" Jake smiled slightly. "I'm going to find those other colony ships. See who else is sleeping out there. And then, I'm going to do what I was made to do." "What's that?" "Wake everyone up." Far above them, in the darkness between stars, the 3 derelict ships continued their endless drift. Inside them, in frozen sleep, more humans waited. More soldiers. More engineers. More people from an era when humanity reached for the stars with both hands. The galaxy had made a mistake. They thought defeating humanity once meant defeating them forever. They thought broken people would stay broken. They were wrong. Humanity wasn't finished. They were just sleeping, dreaming of better days, remembering what it meant to be dangerous. And now, slowly, one by one, they were waking up. The message Jake sent didn't stay in one sector. It spread through human communities everywhere, on mining colonies and farming worlds, in space stations and asteroid habitats. Humans heard it and felt something they hadn't felt in generations: pride. The galaxy would learn soon enough. Humanity had been given 300 years to think about their defeat, to learn from it, to become harder, smarter, more determined. Now that lesson was over. School was out, and humanity was ready to show everyone what they had learned.